So I thought I'd make a little bit of a video on piecing yourself back together after like a massive relationship rupture or a breakup or a move or a life transition or grief and all that, because I've had a bit of experience with this, fortunately, unfortunately, and there's certain things you learn, but it seems to be the case that you can't really go through life predicting and anticipating and preventing these things. And if you do, you often end up causing more issues. You kind of just have to surrender. And so having a few skills or having a few practices, having a bit of an idea of how to support yourself and your capacity is really helpful no matter what, in helping you kind of live with more confidence and more self-trust. And whether you're rebuilding after a collapse of something or whether you're just moving towards a more expansive but restful feeling life, this stuff is helpful. So the first thing I've noticed is that when you're processing a lot, the subconscious, it all comes through dreams, okay? And it comes through thoughts that you don't seem to be able to switch off. That seems to be the first stage, okay? We seem to have these mental loops of it's like a playback, it's like a tape playing back, and your mind is playing back all of the experiences and all of the memories which have come and gone, but which perhaps at the moment you didn't recognize as finite. So this process is something to lean into and not to fight, even when it seems incessant, and even when the thoughts and the loops seem to just be constant, and even when sometimes they're really painful, and even when they're not just memories, but they're sort of visions about what could be happening, what should have happened, and you just kind of have to surrender to that. However, as you surrender to that, you can tune the sort of frequency or the feeling of those mental formations towards the heart, rather than trying to think or feel or process and understand in the thinking mind, which can kind of create these horrible paradoxical loops of like nonsensical suffering. You kind of feel through your heart and your belly, and you can almost like breathe into that part of your body and extend some love towards those thoughts or feelings. So you're kind of teaching those forms, the playback, the memories, the whatever, how to experience love in the body. And once you do that, they tend to process, and there's no longer as much of a charge or a resistance around them, and so they tend not to need to repeat. And once you've filtered through a lot of that, it starts to get better. Now, in preventing this backlog of experience and embracing life as it comes in the moment, and in appreciating what you have before you lose it, because everything that we have we kind of lose, other than the appreciation of it, other than the love through it. Rituals are really good. So rituals are intentional pauses or kind of rites of passage. They're moments to sense the passing of life and to appreciate beginnings and endings, and to be in the still space which is beyond beginnings and endings. So when you acknowledge that something is beginning and ending, you kind of open and close and contextualize that event in your life. And it can mean that like you almost grieve a little bit in the moment you're experiencing something, and it can almost help you to appreciate the value of that thing even more while it's there. And it almost becomes this mix of like beautiful melancholy. One example would be me driving in the car and I just look at my dog and I think, that there'll be a day when I'll miss you. There'll be a day when you're not here. And so I kind of connect with him a little bit more, and I feel into his presence a bit more. And it's just that little moment of recognition. It doesn't have to be this drawn out, like intense, protracted thing. There's no like hectic story. Oh no, like I'm gonna lose this. It's just this like, yeah, I know that I've got something special right now. And when you're with a partner, for example, it could be like you're sitting across from them, you're having tea, you're going for a walk, you're making love, whatever it is, and you appreciate this is happening right now, and there may be a time when this is no longer here, so I'm really going to honor and cherish every part of this now. And the more you honor it now, the more it is appreciated and it grows. And if you do remember it, you'll remember that with appreciation and love. And because of that memory being full of appreciation and love, it's less likely to plague you. So yeah, rituals. Rituals are a really good way to do this. And that's an example of just a little internal ritual, a little perspective ritual. The other thing that tends to happen is, like if this is a bit of a rough one to talk about, but you know, if you're feeling betrayed, if something's happened where you've been betrayed, or you feel let down, or you feel like your trust has been broken, or you know, there's two things that can help. Okay, so the first is, like, if that's really biting into you and there's this sense of deep regret or this sense of deep frustration or this like deep wounding, there's a couple things. The first is recognize the times when you've unconsciously done that to others in your own life. And because it was unconscious, you didn't perhaps realize the pain it would have caused, but you just really needed to take care of yourself. You might have stepped on someone else. So recognize that, like, that's something that you've probably done as well. It's probably something you've done to yourself, and that betrayal is something that you've then allowed into your life because you've left yourself open while someone else is mistreating you. When we are in a healthier place with boundaries, and when we don't allow ourselves to be mistreated, and when we don't allow ourselves to mistreat others, we have some values. It then means that when people pull away, we also pull away. Or when they lean in, we also lean in. But it means you harmonize a little bit better and there's less wounding. So seeing the purity, seeing the humanity of it, that everyone does this and that we're all accidentally hurting each other, and it's in the process of trying to love one another that we hurt one another, that's really helpful. And also, like, I don't know if you've seen it, I can't remember who the artists were, but there's this performance artwork where there's a man and a woman, and one's holding a bow and one's holding an arrow, and they lean back against each other, and like if one of them lets go, the other one's going to be, you know, the arrow is going to go through them. And the idea is that we feel this trust and this tension in relationships, and when we're feeling the tension, we especially need to lean into the trust. When we're feeling the tension, that's the time to not just let go. It's the time to say, hey, I'm feeling the tension. Are you feeling the tension? How are we doing? Let's gently let off some tension, or let's hold some tension, and we're together, right? We're going to do this together. And even if you do let go of one another, you come back to center and you meet, and you have that sense of meeting, closure, and letting go, rather than pulling back and then one person just drops the other. Like there's a trust fall and then no one's there to catch them. So part of that means accepting tensions and accepting change, and being willing to release someone and being willing to release yourself, simply because it's not good for you and not because you've done anything wrong. It's not something to doubt. It's just something to allow. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and you'll come back together. So this forgiveness and this ability to hold the pain of being let down, but at the same time recognize why it is that people let each other down, and it's through fear, helps us not to excuse other people's actions. We can decide, no, I don't like this. I won't be put through this again. This is not going to happen. Like I'm saying no to this. This is exiting my life. No. And we can also say, I understand where it came from, and I understand that your intentions were the purest you had, and that you did everything you could with what you had available. It's not something that we have to unpack and fix. It's just, I'm not down for this anymore. So that well-wishing is, that forgiveness is as selfish as it is selfless. It really does help us to process those really deep cuts. So it's kind of to humble yourself to the humanity of the situation, and to recognize your fragility and actually protect your fragility when you need to. So the other thing that can often happen is, as you're processing, when you drop more into your body and you take care of your nervous system, and like you have a stretch, or you're breathing, or you do something that really helps you melt into your tissues, often that sort of stirs up or releases the stress and tension that's sort of accumulated in you. It kind of like ruffles the stuff internally, and so you feel really good in the moment, and then there can be this recoil of like, oh wow, now that I'm feeling and sensing so much, I'm actually feeling a little bit overwhelmed. While I was locked up, I felt like shit, but at least there was a locking and a narrowing of my nervous system, and things were getting blocked, and I was guarded and protected from these feelings and experiences. Now that I'm open and I'm taking care of my body and all of that, I have to feel more. And in the feeling, you can then get more dreams, more thoughts, and there's layers and layers and layers that will open up and come out of you and through you as you take care of your body and as you open your nervous system. This is part of the process. This is an important part of the process. It doesn't have to be rushed, but it also does need to be done. The reason it needs to be done is because you need to be able to process experiences as they arise, otherwise they accumulate and develop into illnesses. When you can be soft and supple and open, and you can laugh and you can smile and you can appreciate the moment and you can be in your tissues, it also makes you more sensitive and raw, but it helps you to process things quickly, helps you to recover quickly. It helps things to come through you and be let go, and it helps you to then melt the fear of feeling. If you're someone who feels a lot of sensation or intensity in your body, you know, like I've had periods where I've felt like so charged with energy or stress, or I've chosen not to numb through any vices, and I've felt more than I've ever felt, and it's been like so intense. That can be something you can stay with, and you will learn how to regulate. But if you keep numbing every time you feel more, then you won't learn how to regulate. You'll just dissociate. One way to regulate that I use is stance practice or standing practice. So for me, what happens is, like, if my body's super energized and I'm feeling a lot and there's a lot of sensation, it can go up to my head. It's like I end up in my head. I'm on my phone. It's like the attention and sensation it's very frontal. It's in my head. It's forward. If I'm trying to manage something, it's like upper body stress. When I stand, and I have got some stand series videos on YouTube, but when you're doing some sort of Qigong standing, Taoist standing meditation, Tai Chi, or you're just training the feet, working with the feet, walking barefoot, grounding, it shifts the sensation of your body, the internal sensory map, down low. And that's the essence of grounding. You feel your sense of self as someone who is more grounded and low to the floor. And it kind of removes the spotlight of intensity from the mind, and it helps you to process the entirety of your felt somatic bodily experience through your body, rather than trying to process experiences through an analytical or ruminatory process where you're just thinking around things in circles and getting even more wound up. So helping yourself return to presence means helping yourself connect with the feeling of being in your body. And what you want to do is distribute the energy or sensation throughout your body as best you can. Someone who, for instance, does a lot of rock climbing or bouldering is going to be very like upper body tension dominant. And so for someone like that, if they're holding on in a relationship situation, they're likely to feel like their body is trained to hold on and it's trained to do this. Someone who does a lot of Tai Chi and release work or swimming, their body has been trained to release under stress instead of to hold on under stress. And so what happens to the tissues and the function of the body is it begins to relate to the stress through its favorite neural pathway, which is release. And so you learn to release into stress and let it pass through. And you learn to take that energy up here and shift it down low, or into the belly, or into the parts of the body that are sort of blind spots. You learn to create the internal somatic space to process experience through more of the available system that you have, rather than one of your systems becoming overwhelmed. And you can go deeper into that when you look at like TCM and Chinese medicine and meridians. But the point is that it's like you want to dilute and distribute and shift around and move the sensation and the stress through your system, not let it accumulate in one area. That's a lifestyle thing. It's also a practice thing, an intentional practice thing. Anything which helps you to feel stress, feel the sensation of your body, generate a little bit of heat, and then soften and get supple and move and release. Tissue work, massages, this is all going to be super helpful for that. When you release your body and you start to feel better, obviously sometimes things can then come up. But yeah, I find grounding stuff and meditation to be super, super useful. Remember when things then come up afterwards that you don't just want to take them and run with them. Like, okay, things are coming up. I'm feeling things are coming up because I've cleared my channel, I've cleared my body. So the next layer of stuff is being sifted through. It's important to then notice when you're reacting to that and notice what that's doing to you and what the stress feels like. And become aware that if you go back to the situation that's been hurting you and you try to use that external thing that's not working in order to self-regulate, you're putting yourself back in the situation that's caused your pain, and you're breaking trust with yourself. And when you break trust with yourself and you're not self-soothing as a first priority, then you reconsolidate the link between feeling good and then having to go back into distress. And so you're kind of building a thicker pathway of every time I feel good, I then have to give that power and that energy and that safety away and self-abandon to go and find my safety elsewhere. So it's really important that you spend more time focusing on supporting yourself in the present moment and being there for yourself and being there for your body. Spend more time and do that first, rather than just going out and, like, there's been nights where my mind's racing and I'll send an email to someone at 3 a.m. or I'll respond to a text, or, there's these things you need to give yourself time. You need to give yourself time to cool off and to process. You need to not try to solve everything. You need to allow yourself to act and interact from a place of embodied stability, and be very conscious about accessing the state you want to be in and creating interactions from that state. And if you can't access that state, then there may be more emotion to have to deal with, and there may be a further development or enmeshment of the situation, further complication. So yeah, it's tricky stuff. Relationships are tricky stuff. But being able to appreciate your own sincerity, your own sincere effort. At the end of the day, like, we all struggle with things, and there's always going to be stuff in life that we can't figure out. And life, in some ways, is an unsolvable problem, and in another way, it's not a problem at all. It's just an experience. There's always going to be something. But if you can appreciate your sincerity, and you can appreciate that you're taking a holistic and integrative approach to soothing in situations that are difficult, you're doing the things that are going to help you tomorrow, at a rate and amount that is also healthy for you now. You're supporting your body. You're allowing experiences to pass. You're looking at why they're so irritating for you, and you're looking to kind of acknowledge that, set some boundaries, and then sort of direct some love towards that experience and the people who are part of it. You're making new choices about how you interact with others. This is the best you can do. And if you do that, just rest easy knowing you're doing your best. That's all you got. You're doing your best. So I hope that's helpful. I've been going through a bit of this stuff recently. It's been a fucking huge year for me. And even before that, like, I've had a lot of grief and movement and transition and beauty and intensity and urgency and opening and death and fucking... It's been a crazy year. It's been such a transformative year, but at the same time, the rate of that transformation And the rate and the direction have been a little bit unhealthy as well. Yeah. There's no way, once again, to second guess life and to preempt our struggles. But we do need to learn to be very comfortable in our own skin. That's probably the most satisfying thing that you could focus on, becoming as comfortable as possible in your own skin. I think if you can do that, then anything that you create and anyone that you connect with, like, they're getting the best of you, you're getting the best of you. And if you're comfortable in your own skin, then you'll be able to allow others to be who they are too. And you'll be able to release them and let them go, or bring them close and hold them. But what's really important is if you're comfortable in your own skin and you're okay in your heart and soul because you're really good at taking care of yourself, then most life issues are practical, and even stuff like big tricky decisions, they're just a bit more practical. They don't feel as emotionally charged. I think when we are able to make big decisions and they're less emotionally charged, and it's because we're taking care of ourselves and because we know that that's like helping to honor others, and we have a little bit of a set of standards of how we do that, I think that's the best outcome we can really have. So yeah, that's it for me for tonight. If you're interested in working together, like if you want me to support you with this stuff, that's something I do. And you can just comment mentorship under this video and I'll see your comment. And I can send you some information on a couple of different ways to work with me. Other than that, I hope you're having an awesome, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are in life. And keep taking care of yourself. Be open, be steady. Be open, be steady. Take care of yourself. The best things are always going to grow from good foundations. It's a wise thing to focus on your foundations. It's a wise thing to be proactive about supporting your foundations. You don't always have to clutch and stretch yourself to the next level. You will get there if you support the foundations. It's just like the way we fertilize a plant, or, make a good garden and the trees grow tall and the root systems are deep and there's a lot of strength and diversity and whatever. It comes from the cause and effect of taking care of the small things. And when you do that well, you will naturally start to alchemize and transform your relationships and your life towards more beauty. So do it like a garden. Do it like this. All right.